she assumed if you went on a date, that meant you were having sex, like you were a prostitute. So I left the
We
cult.
need to go on more dates.
Welcome to the Redacted Apostate. My name is Nicole, and I was raised in an apocalyptic cult, and I have thoughts.
Hi, my name is Carl, and I am a Will psychiatrist.
Apparently. Are you a psychiatrist, or are you working towards your psychiatry degree in whaleology?
You caught me there. So I'm working towards the degree. It's night school. It is hard.
It's all online.
No.
You became a whale psychologist online?
You have to go in person. And what's the worst part about it is holding your breath for that long.
And because there's no ocean near us. The closest ocean is 5 hours away.
You know, that's just semantics. Those are minor issues. Oh my God.
And there's the cat. Cat wants to be on the whale psychology.
Well, we were talking about fish, so.
Yeah. Oh, you could go to the Georgia Aquarium. They've got whale there.
They have whale sharks there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that fit in your psychiatry degree?
Yeah, it's a minor in whale shark. It's not psychology, it's sociology. So,
Well, I support you in your whale psychology.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's good to know.
All right. Today we are going to talk about the 12 tribes cult in the U.S. and their impact on society, which they're a very small cult. And for some reason, they've been showing up in my life a lot lately. And I don't really know why. So I get a lot of cult information because not only the cult that I was raised in, I'm interested in that community, but also other cults I'm really interested in also. So on the subreddits, on TikTok, on Google alerts, and kind of all things I get hit from kind of all directions on cult news. And for some reason, 12 Tribes keeps coming up.
That's weird.
And 12 Tribes is linked to another pretty famous location called Yellow Deli. They own a series of yellow delis across the world, actually.
Like a real deli?
A real deli, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Real sandwich place.
Okay, that seems like profundity yours.
Yeah. Very similar.
They buy, and in that place when we were over in Alabama too, which you thought was a cult breeding ground, the coffee shop.
The coffee shop, yeah. And I wonder if it was because they own another place called Mate something, and that's what they do. We'll get into their recruitment.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And how they do it. But the most interesting thing about this cult is dealing with my own preconceptions and biases and prejudices.
About cults or about delis?
Neither, actually.
Oh, okay.
About boys. I was thinking about this last night. So I don't like young men. Like, it's not that I don't like them. It's that I have these preconceived opinions about them. Like, and I'm saying young men, like 18 to 28-ish, that age.
Well, you're also scared of teenagers
exactly.
in general.
Terrified of teenagers. And so a couple of years ago, I'm a big yard sale person. And so I pulled up into this yard sale, parked my car, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and in my rearview mirror was 4 young men who pulled up behind me, 4 white young men that pulled up behind me, and I just like inwardly groaned, like, oh my God, what am I going to have to deal with? And I almost didn't go like up to the yard sale because I had this preconceived prejudice, I guess it is.
Right.
I guess you could say prejudice or bias or what's the word?
Well, it's not racism, so
yeah.
They're not their own species of people. Yeah.
Stereotypes. Anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm just going to go up. I'm just going to deal with whatever this is. So I get up there and they are following me right behind, and they go up to the homeowner and they say, do you have any blankets? And the homeowner says, no, I don't have any blankets. And they said, oh, because we're out, we're buying blankets for the homeless. And in that moment, I felt like a total idiot. Like I was the biggest moron on earth.
Well, maybe not the biggest. You know, what Will psychology will tell you.
Did you just call me a whale?
No.
Oh my God. Wait, is that good or bad? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody.
I guess.
Mainly beluga whales, which are not actually whales. I have found that out. You can't use the same psychology on belugas.
Okay.
So
All right. So
the stuff you learn. So anyway, speaking about your prejudices and your
against young men.
yeah.
So a big reason why I never was active on YouTube until recently was because of this preconception that YouTube is all just young men screaming about video games.
And for a long time it was. Not 100%, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of that content out there.
Right. And so I just avoided YouTube altogether until like the last maybe
So why
3
do
or 4
you
years.
have this issue with the
I don't know.
teenage?
I honestly don't know.
Because it's not. It's
and
knowing.
we have a teenage boy too, so.
And he scares me. So, so because you don't just have like this prejudice against teenage boys, you have a prejudice against teenagers. But
Well, they're scary in general. Right?
yeah,
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for like me looking in, it's this. You're going through this period of your life where you're not really in control over your emotions and behavior and stuff because of hormones and angst, and the world hates you because they feed you and they give you shelter and Wi-Fi, and man, they really hate you for that.
I guess I don't know. I don't know the origin. Yeah, I don't know the origin of it. And I say all this and how it links to the Yellow Deli cult or the 12 tribe cult is because, like I said, I get hit from all kind of corners about cult news and information. Mm-hmm. And I was seeing a link to the Yellow Deli cult from these 2 YouTubers, young men, who are, and I'll tell you their names. Their names are Danny Burke and Reckless Ben. That's their names, right? They are surfers. They are the epitome of young, white, privileged men. And some of their early YouTube videos are them getting bit by bullet ants.
Yeah.
And jumping off things into water. So that stereotype persisted. And so I ignored these videos.
So it's hitting all of your
It hits
issues,
all of my prejudices. Everything about these 2 young men hit every single prejudice I had. And so I just ignored those videos.
And just from my outside looking in too, is that the way they look, if you're listening to this and you kind of built this image of in your head of what they look like, it is exactly that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They do not look outside or different from
the way you imagine.
The way that you're imagining 2 surfers that have a YouTube channel where they're getting bit by bullet ants.
Right.
Yeah.
So they look the way you think they would look. They sound the way you think they would sound. Mm-hmm. And so I immediately discounted it. I thought it was like clickbait young man garbage for me.
And their stuff is a bit clickbaity too. So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But recently, within the last couple of days, they released a new video in extension to their 12 Tribes stuff that they had done a couple of years ago. And it was, we talked to an ex-cult member. And that kind of got my attention. And so I started watching it as they were talking to this former member of the 12 Tribes who they had met when they were infiltrated the 12 Tribes. And all of my stereotypes were pinging, right? Because like I said, they look the way you would expect them to look. They sounded the way that you expected them to sound.
Even the room that they're in
is exactly what you would expect.
Exactly the way that I would expect their room to look.
Yeah. But what was coming out of their mouths was really profound to me. Because they didn't understand what they were dealing with. Because they had such privileged lives, and they embarked on this journey, I think they started out, in my perception of the whole journey that they went on, and we'll put a link in there because I would suggest going through and watching this from beginning to end and this journey that they went on. I think they started the journey in this Mr. Beast, funny, we're going to infiltrate a cult. And then in the middle of it, they realized how serious. They kind of dove into the deep end.
LOL, this is a cult. Watch as I survive 100 days in this cult. Yeah, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And as they were dealing with the beliefs and the cult, they started to realize how dangerous and how impactful and how hurtful these cults have on individual lives.
And how much of a serious matter it is that this is not a, that this is a video content that should be made, but not for the reasons that they probably originally had stepped into.
Maybe this is my perception. I have no idea.
I can go with that.
They are a huge YouTube channel, so like there's no way I could like go out and ask, but that was my perception based on what I saw. Was they were going in for the clicks, for the what we had, content goblin, like oh, this is so funny because their beliefs are absurd. And then as they were going in, they started realizing this is way more intense and way more difficult than we originally had thought. And so they were talking to this young man who was out of the cult, technically, and I'm going to use this in air quotes, out of the cult, because they didn't know. They assumed that as soon as you leave physically the location that you're in, and they have compounds. We'll get to that.
There's a lot to get to on this group.
There's a lot. That if once you physically leave the compound, then you're out of the cult. And so they were talking to him and they were assuming that he was out of the cult. And they were assuming that he had woken up. Well,
and that's, I think the other thing too, is that the idea of someone being out of the cult is, there's so many layers to that term, being in a cult and being out of a cult. So when you say you're out of a cult, that doesn't mean that you are mentally out of a cult. That just means that you are physically detached from the members of that cult.
And they had never come across this.
Yeah.
Now, I knew exactly what I was looking at when they were talking to this other young man. And he was, and you're right, they call that physically out, mentally in.
Okay.
That's what it is. And so he was physically out of the cult, but the cult still had control of his mind. He was still convinced he was going to go to the lake of fire. He was still convinced he was sinning, even though his cognitive dissonance was kicking in. And they didn't know how to deal with, like, they handled it really well.
Right.
For not knowing what they were dealing with and they came in with, oh, he's out. He's going to answer our questions about blah, blah, blah. And when they started talking to him, they realized, no, he still believes this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though when you look at the surface of the 12 tribes, you're like, how could anyone believe this crap? And that was how they started it, but that's not how they ended it.
Yeah.
How they ended it was more like, hey, man, when you're ready, you can come talk to us.
Yeah.
And we're here. And they were asking him questions in the way that you would ask someone to try and get them to mentally open up.
Yeah, and I will have to say that I think them not having a full grasp of cult mentality and cult training actually probably was a benefit to them.
Maybe.
Because they're trying to figure out, well, why is this person saying and believing these things when you're no longer in the group? Like, you can have your own thoughts now. So, oh, wait a minute, that's not exactly what's happening here. So I want to know why.
Why?
So that was one of the things, because I would come in every so often and catch snippets of this interview, and the questions that they were asking would be the questions that you would be asking, or, someone would be asking that doesn't understand cults, no idea. So, well, wait a minute. Well, what do you mean by this? And then he has to stop and think about it, because now he's being asked for his opinion about something, because he's not in that conditioned environment anymore where he's just going to spout out what he's been told to say.
Right.
He said that, and they were like, well, wait a minute, though.
What about this?
Why in this context? And then you could see him like processing, trying to filter it through that cult training to get an answer. Right. And then and there was a few moments where he was like, I'm not really sure why it's this way, because that's not the way.
Or he would say, that's not how I feel.
Yeah.
But this is what I was taught to believe.
Right.
And you could see his brain kind of breaking in that moment. And unless you've been in that situation where you have to leave, it's such a weird space. And we've talked about this. We talked about this with Chad Frankie. Chad Frankie is in that same space too, where
it's that liminal.
Yeah. I still want to believe. He still wanted to go on a Mormon mission. And Chad Frankie was the child who was abused by his mother, and they were part of a YouTube channel.
It was Ruby Frankie. Yeah.
Ruby Frankie, she went to jail. And Chad Frankie has released some videos about being in that liminal space. And it's such a weird space to be in. You've been told something your whole life, and you're brainwashed, essentially.
Yeah.
And now you're not believing most of it, but you still believe some of it, and you have to kind of work through all of that stuff. And it's a tough spot to be in.
Well, the part that I think is the most fascinating is not figuring out what is your own thoughts versus the thoughts that you've been told. Right. Because if it was me and I had gone through this, the question that I'd be asking myself is like, well, what's your favorite color? Oh, it's blue. Is it? Like, I'd be constantly doing that.
You're constantly questioning yourself.
Is it blue? I think it's blue. Or was I told it was blue? Then like it would be that way about everything. And then simple questions would become this complex kind of thing that you have to figure out in your head. Because you have to constantly worry about, is this the conditioning, or am I actually just giving my opinion based on my own thoughts?
Yeah.
So that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and you could see it in the interview with Danny Burke and Reckless Ben.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, wait a minute. I completely stereotyped these two young men. I judged them based on their appearance and the way that they sounded. And I immediately discounted their other content. So then I went back and I watched the content about their infiltration of the 12 tribes. So the 12 tribes, what's interesting about them is they believe almost exactly what any right-wing Christian organization believes.
It's like a Christian nationalist kind of.
Yeah. And what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, that it's any type of that apocalyptic right-wing, they all believe very similar stuff. And
except for the racial slurs.
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that also. I was thinking about it. I don't know if you know this story.
They just don't say it out loud, right?
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
I mean, it took them years to get rid of the racist stuff. And so they use this idea, and this is such a funny story. And I don't know if you know this, but the reason that these white nationalists give for racism, or the justification of racism, is because Noah cursed one of his sons. And apparently Noah had sons that were of 3 different races. One was black, one was white, and one was something else. I don't know. And
Irish.
He was Irish. Yeah. And Noah was this horrible alcoholic.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, because
he was Irish. We watched Noah the musical.
Yeah, right. With what's it, Russell Crowe?
Russell
right?
Crowe, yeah.
Yeah, and he was an alcoholic there too.
They got that part right. The rest of that movie is a fever dream.
I actually enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, but we like fever dream movies, so yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it was very historically accurate too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Noah's all historically accurate. So I have a cat here trying to get up.
I wonder what the blue whales thought about it.
I don't know. So Noah gets blackout drunk. He gets Rick Sanchez blackout drunk.
I was drunk.
Drunk, right? And he like shits himself and like all over the place, right? And so one of his sons Ham or Shem or one of them. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
One of them. It's like, oh my God, you got drunk, and makes fun of him.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, Dad got drunk. And that's why he was cursed. Forever. That's why there was slavery, the justification of slavery, all of the white supremacists was because Noah got drunk and one of his kids made fun of him. Not that Noah got blackout drunk and pissed and shit himself. No.
Well, they're
his son.
Supposed to honor their father.
Exactly. So that's the 12 tribes there.
And after watching the movie, man, I tell you, I think that's accurate. The way he treated his sons, the way he was wanting to kill the girl, like all of that stuff. That seems right. That seems Noah-ish to me.
Yeah, Noah seems like a huge
That's like
dick.
It's like who's the guy that said he was going to murder his son for God?
Abraham.
And then God steps in and goes, LOL, JK, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, was I late? I was supposed to come here a couple hours earlier.
There was something I had to do today. What was it? Yeah. So that's their whole basis for racism. And the Jehovah's Witnesses believed that crap also. And then in the 70s, they
moved my microphone.
They later refined it.
Yeah.
But they've tried to scrub all of those. And the Mormon Church also believed that crap, and they tried to scrub their racist beliefs also. But
it feels to me though that they're scrubbing the basis for it, but not scrubbing the action of it. They still believe that stuff. They just don't want you to look it up and find it.
Yeah. You know? So it's like all of those organizations. So they all have similar beliefs like that. So does the 12 Tribes. The 12 Tribes is essentially a Christian right organization, and it was founded by Elbert Eugene Spriggs. And that's a name. Yeah, that is a name. He founded it in the 1970s, kind of as an outcropping of the hippie movement. A lot of that right-wing Christian movement came out of the disillusioned hippies, and they found Jesus, and that was my mother. And I think this is another organization my mother could have easily joined, was this 12 Tribes organization.
Yeah.
So God came to him when he actually was working as a carnie in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mr. Spriggs was. And God came to him while he was a carnie and said, "Is this what I created you for?"
What was his job as a carnie?
I don't know, and I don't care. But I love that
Was he the bearded lady? I mean... Oh my God.
Is this what I created you for? All of them have these crazy.
Oh my gosh.
But essentially it's the Christian right belief system. Now, one thing, if you haven't seen our video on the 144,000, you should go back and look on that, because the way the 144,000 are used by different organizations is actually really funny. So the 12 Tribes actually uses the 144,000 in its legitimate context, except for one small variation. Do you remember what the real 144,000 were?
Yeah, so it was the 12,000 members of the 12 tribes of Israel, and each of the founders of the different tribes were they were going to be Jewish leaders that converted to Christianity after the second coming and prophesized the word of God against their own religion. So they were actually going to be converted to Christianity, and they were the marked individuals. The only time that the Bible actually talks about God marking individuals. So they're going to be marked by God.
And you're missing two key points. One is they had to be virgins.
Oh, that's right.
And they had to be men.
Yes.
So Mr. Spriggs, in his wisdom...
Mr. Spriggs,
in his wisdom, said that they need to find 144,000 male Jewish virgins. I don't want to go to that party. Oh my God. And here comes my preconceived prejudices. That sounds like my own personal hell. Wow. Wow. So they changed.
Like a brony festival or something like that.
Yeah. all the incels from their mother's basements. They all become part of the 12 tribes.
Can you get a job and a wife? I'm trying to become part of the 144,000, Mom. I have a higher calling.
Is this what I created you for? Yes, to be a virgin in 144,000.
You're doing good, kid. Just keep in that basement. Thanks, God.
Keep playing Minecraft.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Call of Duty.
Keep playing Call of Duty and calling your friends racial slurs.
Exactly
there you go.
Right. You're doing
and listening to Andrew Tate.
You're doing great, kid.
You're doing great. Keep it up. So where are they going to find 144,000 virgins? So they dropped the Jewish part.
too. Okay,
they dropped the Jewish part. So that's the one part they dropped.
Because it was too difficult.
Too difficult.
Yeah.
So it's just 144,000 male virgins.
Right. Right.
And once those 144,000 male virgins are accumulated to the 12 tribes under Mr. Spriggs, that's when the end of the world will come.
We're safe.
Right? I don't even think that's mathematically possible.
Is there like a test for that too?
Yeah. What's the
like
test?
how do you because it's, and I think we find out through the story that all you got to do is just say, yeah, I'm a virgin.
I'm a virgin. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and you're a guy.
Ooh. So that's the end for Danny Burke and Reckless Ben. They say that they're virgins, even though they are professional surfers. And in their 20s.
You look at those two kids and you're like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You probably weren't a virgin like at the age of 14. Come on.
Come on. Which becomes a problem, and I'll talk about my observations of the whole series, but that's their end. Now, the 12 tribes, they have very interesting conversion tactics.
Oh, 12 tribes. I just got it, the reference now. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the 104,000, yeah. So I have a list here of the way that they convert, and this is the funniest. Mm-hmm. So I'm showing Carl a picture of the bus. It says, welcome, please come in. Isn't that the coolest bus you've ever seen?
Actually, I would join for that.
Yeah. So they had this bus called the Peacemaker that would follow.
Oh, it's a double decker too.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. So just to let you know, so this is like a 1955-ish double decker. It's like a brown and white. I think that's brown, right? Yeah. Double decker, like tour bus.
Chromed out.
Yeah. I mean, pretty standard for that time period, but the chrome and stuff like that. It's the time when chrome was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's like the chrome is like perfectly restored.
Yeah, it's good shape.
Really beautiful. It's called the Peacemaker. And they would take that bus and they would follow around the musical recitals
mm-hmm.
of the musicians, the Grateful Dead.
Again, if you're looking for virgins, not a great place to go.
Not the place. But if you're looking for dropouts, hippies,
yeah,
people with nowhere else to counterculture.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. Another thing that they do is along the Appalachian Trail, they have hostels that they open up
mm-hmm.
to individuals. Again, if you're hiking the Appalachian Trail, usually it's this quest to find yourself, to drop out, mm-hmm. to experience something different. And they offer a welcoming place. There's stories of people that have been hiking on the Appalachian Trail and gone into their hostels and
never come out,
join the cult. Not that they died or anything. It's just that they joined the cult and they were in forever.
Yeah.
They also open up these cafes, these
Yellow Deli.
Yellow Deli and the Mate Cafe. And I think they're vegetarian cafes, but they're in cities and they're very popular. I've actually seen them before. And they will provide free food, a place for runaways, a place for people that have nowhere to go to come and
I mean, they're giving away free
eat.
food?
Yeah,
They
they'll...
sound like a bunch of communists to me.
Well, like, how...
That was a joke.
I don't... Well, they're hippies.
I know that's
It's a very confusing, right? Because they...
white national Christian nationalists.
But they live on a commune.
Yeah, socialist bit, a bit communism, a bit capitalism. It feels like they just pick and choose.
That's all religions.
Well, all cults.
All cults do that.
Yeah.
Whatever works for them. So they're deliberately recruiting in places that are looking for runaways, dropouts, people that are disaffected, people that are sick of society. It's a good recruitment tactic.
Yeah, of course.
And then what they do also is as soon as you enter the cult, you have to give up all your worldly possessions.
Obviously, yeah.
Now, from what I could see, they have what they call the farm. Every cult has a farm. That farm. 'Cause you wouldn't be a good cult if you didn't have a farm.
Right.
So they have the farm.
Because food is a means of control.
Yeah. So if you were in this cult and you're listening to this, that's a question I have for you. I didn't get to the point where I know that they have severe restrictions for children on what they can eat or when they feed them. But is there what's the food like? What's the food situation? Are they vegetarian? Are they vegan? What are the rules around food?
Because those two guys, I don't remember ever them talking about the kind of food that they ate, but I could also see both of those guys being vegetarian or vegan as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So they probably were like, yeah, this is all good.
Whatever,
you know?
yeah.
Although that doesn't matter to me if they're vegetarian or not. But typically, if you're growing your own food, vegetarianism is easier to do than raising livestock. And
they seemed like they were vegetarian because of the Seventh-day Adventists, that kind of offshoot of them. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like that, but I don't really know. So if you know, leave a comment, let me know. So these two young surfers go to the Yellow Deli cult, and they say that they're bullied because they're virgins. And they feel so lost and mistreated.
Just look at us. We can't get women.
Abused.
Sure.
And the people who are at the deli have these looks because they're wearing these spy glasses, you know? Yeah. And the people at the deli are like, huh. But there are other people in there that are like, oh, you're a virgin? Yeah. What?
Sploosh.
Yeah, exactly. And they invite them to a wedding. This is how they get invited. They say, why don't you come to a wedding? Now, I think anybody who's invited randomly to a wedding, that feels so innocuous and feels welcoming and feels kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so
I can see that.
But they're all undercover. But if you were a disaffected dropout with no place to go and someone gave you a sandwich and they said, hey, come to this wedding, and you go.
You're probably going to get fed there too. So.
Yeah. Well, so they go to this wedding, and the wedding is as culty can be. I mean, they're doing circles, dancing and chanting. Right. And I mean, they are just
a few sacrifices, stuff like that.
Oh my God. They are
standard cult stuff. Yeah.
But it's not a real wedding. It's a passion play of a wedding. So they're inviting them to this wedding.
Because if you get married, you can you have to consummate that the marriage, you're not a virgin anymore. So I wonder if there's a thing you're not really married, because if you were really married, then you have to do the deed. So to keep you a virgin, we're just gonna act like you're married, but you still can't hook up because that's against God. So that would keep to the religious beliefs, though, right?
I don't know, but I think I don't know if it's I don't know.
Did I break your brain? I'm sorry.
You broke my brain
Okay.
with your talking and your big words. I don't know. My
for me.
Yeah, my perception was it was a play. That it was they called it a wedding to disarm people. So put yourself in this.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the spot of you are disaffected for whatever reason. You don't like your parents mistreated you, you're a runaway because of whatever happened in your home life. You end up at this yellow deli and you have a sandwich. They give you a sandwich.
Sorry, just the sandwich.
I know.
I have so many questions, but go ahead.
The sandwich. I know. This is like, it gets confusing.
What kind of sandwich is it?
Yeah.
What toppings? I need to know.
I make the best vegetarian sandwiches personally. Like,
I don't know about the vegetarian part, but
no, I do. I make like amazing vegetarians. I used to make those all the time growing up, which reminded me of this yellow deli. Anyway, so you end up at this place and you're eating a sandwich and they can see that you are exactly the type of person that they're targeting. And they say to you, "Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed our sandwich. Why don't you come to a wedding at the farm?"
Yeah.
You're like, a wedding is harmless.
Yeah.
They're not going to indoctrinate you. And you get there and it's a wedding, but it's actually just a play. And you get love bombed. And for the first time and for a very long time, you feel slightly safe.
Yeah, you're accepted for just being you. Yeah.
Right. And then slowly the teachings start coming and you stay there, you work and you're safe and you're fed. You just have to live by these crazy ultra conservative right-wing Christian rules.
Yeah, but I mean,
Like beat your kids.
It's done. But like it's, and I'm sure if I was in that situation, I'd be like, yeah, it's just a few things. It's not bad, right?
Yeah, I think you even said if you were hiding from the law, that would be like one of the best places to go.
Yeah.
And it becomes a breeding ground for abusers.
Right. Because they don't want to be caught. So they're going to go to this area where they know that the police won't be allowed onto the property or, nobody's going to answer any questions.
Right. And children are seen, not heard. Children are property. And children have to obey adults implicitly. It doesn't matter if it's a parent or not. And the children cannot speak up for themselves.
Right.
So it becomes an absolute breeding ground for abuse, just like the Jehovah's Witness religion.
Yeah.
And any of those like super right wing.
I wonder if they have that
Christian
same thing where that you have to have two witnesses for something to be true.
They just discount it completely because the kids are children and they're worthless. And so even if a child comes forward and says, I was abused, and part of the complexity also is that none of these children go to school.
Yeah.
So there's no, from a governmental perspective, the government can't step in based on rumors.
Right.
Now, some of them are slowly, and this is one of them came across my Google alert feed that he had just been sentenced for child abuse, who was a 12 member, and I think somewhere like Vermont, somewhere up there. I don't know exactly the Northeast, I think. Anyway, so I think the U.S., like the attorney generals in the states are starting to...
They're on the radar now.
They're on their radar, yeah. And they're starting... And as survivors, as these kids grow up and leave the cults, they're speaking up and trying to help the other younger kids. But there's no... Like, we live in a mandatory reporting state. So if those kids went to school, the teachers would have to report it. But because none of those children go to school, no one knows. And so there's no real jurisdiction. So it's this weird legal quagmire of these kids living in this
Yeah. And I mean, you also don't want the government stepping in and just, just because there was
Ruby ridging it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like,
exactly.
doesn't have a great... U.S. government doesn't have a great track record for dealing with cults. They're getting better, though. I mean, like, if you look at what's happened to Raniere and then that kid with the Discord cult. So they're getting better. They're starting to learn, but it's taken decades and lots of deaths for the U.S. government to learn. Were you going to say something? Nope. Okay. So Danny Burke and Reckless Ben, they are filming, and what they're learning is people give up all their possessions. They go live on the farm, and they're completely isolated. So like I said, there's two groups of this 12 tribes. There's people that have the delis and the hostels, and they work there. And they are more savvy because they deal with
people every day.
People every day. But the people that live at the farm are completely isolated. Their information is isolated. And so whatever these two young men, Danny Burke and Reckless Ben, are feeding this group, they believe, because they have no individuality.
Yeah.
And they're feeding into their narratives also. So they're coming and saying, I was bullied as a virgin, and I want to join your group, and now I feel accepted. And they're just feeding them crap after crap. And this group is soaking it in and believing it. So part of this story arc that they created before they went into infiltrating this cult was one of them was going to have a fiance who they're saving for marriage.
Yeah.
And then she has a gay thought. Another thing, too, like any of these right Christian groups, they're extremely homophobic and say horrible things. So he said, she had a gay thought. And then they end up killing her. Like, not literally.
Oh, okay.
In narrative story speak.
Yeah.
They're like, she died because she had a gay thought. And the people on the farm are eating this up because it feeds into their narrative. Right. And that reminded me of my mother also, because I would do the same crap to her. I would say stuff to her just to feed into her narrative. Stuff that just wasn't even like
possible
or remotely true in reality. For instance, I was thinking about, I was like, what were some instances where I would do that? And one of them was, she assumed if you went on a date, that meant you were having sex, like you were a prostitute. So I left the cult.
We need to go on more dates.
And I'd be like, yeah, I'm going on a date. She'd be like, you're having sex. It was just like I had met one person and I was going on one date. And that's so far from the reality, but that was her narrative. And so I would be like, yep. And I would go into explicit detail on the sexual activity of this person. I was just to feed into it because it was so ridiculous.
First, you put her feet up on a cathedral.
I think you're just making this stuff up now. And she just ate it up. Like, you're such a sinner, you know. And that's how the people on the farm are. Now, they're feeding this same nonsense to the people at the Yellow Deli.
And they're like, what?
And I could see the look on the face through the spyglasses of the guy that they're feeding this crap to. And he's like, uh-huh. And then he would laugh nervously.
Right.
And walk off. And like, he's not buying it.
Yeah.
He is not buying it. And so I would suggest watching the whole thing because their narrative is really good. They do a good job editing and all that kind of good stuff. It's a really nice watch how they infiltrated and how they kind of come to terms with understanding how destructive these cults are. Yeah. The interesting thing too is they say very clearly, you know, so many people support the Yellow Deli or the hostel at the Appalachian Trail. And they're like, oh, well, the food's so good or it's cheap or whatever reason. And it's like the more you support these organizations, the more it fosters this kind of abuse. And I think they started to realize that halfway through, like I said. I don't know for sure. This is my own perception based on what I saw. Like halfway through, they started realizing patroning these organizations and patroning these cults only, I don't know the word, helps it grow or helps it sustain itself. And
well, I mean, one is the money situation, but two is also the righteousness of action. Sort of, I don't know if there's a better term for that, But if your whole thing is that what you are doing is correct, and you get into these kind of like mental loopholes where you go like anything that bad happens is the devil or the government or whatever, and everything good that's happened is God. God is never sitting there going, well, I'm going to take all your money away, right? But if all of their actions are benefiting, so they're getting money from you going to these delis, it's in furtherance of their cause. Look,
God is blessing us with money, and so we're right.
Exactly.
Even though, like, you can Google this and look at the horrific child abuse that is
absolutely
in these groups,
and the racism too,
and the racism. I mean, the horrible racism and the horrible child abuse that's going on. Yeah, I agree with Danny Burke and Reckless Ben in this. I think you should not, as much as I say how fun it would be to go see these places or to go to
we could go look at them, but
crazy,
I wouldn't buy a sandwich from them.
Profundity Yours Deli, like their place.
Actually, what I would do is go there and try to get a free sandwich.
Oh, pretend you're a dropout.
Try to take money from them.
Pretend you're a teenage runaway.
I'm a teenage virgin. This is my wife and 2 kids.
I'd like a sandwich, please.
And I heard there was a talk about a wedding.
Could I see the wedding?
Is there going to be more food there?
Is the food like this sandwich or like her sandwich?
Yeah, because get stuff from them. Don't patronize.
Don't patronize them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give some spoilers. If you're going to watch the series, go watch the series. But I want to tell you about what these two, Danny Burke and Reckless Ben, do, because it's absolutely hysterical. And one of the best things that I think I've seen on the internet in a very long time. So part of the deal with working at the Yellow Deli is all of the people that work there work for free, because it's naturally. I mean, when you're in a cult, I talked about the locations where people would work for free, and I was a regular pioneer. I worked for free preaching, and I worked for free building congregation, kingdom halls.
Could we sue for lack of wages?
That would be nice, but
not worth the money.
Yeah. What was the minimum wage back then?
No. That's not the way you do it. The way you do it is that you look at yourself as you were a higher up. You weren't minimum wage. You were a consultant, and you want consultant fees.
I want consultant fees.
Yeah, which I would say back then would have been $20 an hour. So you do that times all the years that you were consulting for them, and
I want my money back.
I want my money.
So the way that they get around this legally is they form an LLC, and if you work, you become a part owner. Because if you're a part owner, it's really hard to say. Part owner.
Mm-hmm.
You can work for free, right? Because it's your business. Essentially, you're working towards a business, and that's how they get around.
And if you've ever run a business, you are working for free most of the time.
Exactly. So they get around paying minimum wage to their workers by being owners. So what Danny Burke and Reckless Ben do is they create the San Diego Virgin Society, and they get all their virgin friends, all 50 of them, to go into the Yellow Deli and work because they're virgins and become part owners. So all 50 of them go in and start working. And the cults, because their narrative is it's virgins that are going to make up the 144,000.
They're not going to turn them down.
They can't.
Yeah. They need the numbers.
They need the numbers. So here comes this group of 50 virgins.
Who's manning the internet?
Right. So they come in, they put them all to work, like wiping windows, cleaning couches, all that kind of stuff in this deli.
Yeah.
And then they hold a team meeting, and the 50 of them vote to fire all the cult members and to take over the restaurant.
Because they have majority control.
Because they're part owners. And all chaos ensues at that point. Because legally that's what it is.
Yep. God, they're stupid.
I know. Well, I mean, and how creative are these two young men, Danny Burke and Reckless Ben? Very creative, because they understood how important those delis are to recruitment, to raising funds, and they created this big sign out of shoe polish, very much like Kevin Smith's.
Yeah. I assure you,
we are not
open.
a cult. It says, I assure you, we are not a cult anymore. They put it up. It's a really good episode.
That's good.
It is a really good episode. But the most disturbing thing is how the San Diego Police Department handled the situation. The San Diego Police Department is one government organization that does not understand the dangers of cults and do not understand how destructive this cult is and how abusive this cult is, because they came in and were really, in the typical California police officer way, were so rude to these two young men who were trying to raise awareness about this cult. And the San Diego Police Department was absolutely it was, as much as it was the most interesting thing I saw on the internet regarding cults, it was the most frustrating thing to see how the San Diego Police Department acted.
So, but is that a case of these cults, due to the way that we deal with religious freedom, have more rights than... It's like, what are the police going to do? They probably already know that this is a cult, but they also know too they just can't come in and bust it up because they feel like it.
Well, they patron it. The San Diego Police Department patrons the Yellow Deli, and they made it very clear that they do, that they eat there. They know who the workers are, and they were like, we know who the workers are, and you're not. I've never seen you here. And he's like, it doesn't matter. I'm a part owner. I voted to fire those people. That's the law. Yeah. At that point, the police should have said, you need to call your lawyers, because this is a legal matter. Yeah. This is not law. This is not, they weren't breaking the law. Yeah. At all. Yeah. But the San Diego Police Department came in support of this destructive, horrible
That's
cult.
Weird.
Yeah. It was very weird. And it was very weird about how
God, the sandwiches must be good.
I guess. I don't know. I think I make a better vegetarian sandwich personally, but I've never had the Yellow Deli. You can take me up on that? Because I make some killer vegetarian sandwiches.
Now I want a sandwich for lunch, actually.
After all this talk about how sandwiches can change your life, they can. Yeah. Like if somebody would have given my mom a sandwich in 1972
at the right time,
that's
all
that
matters. Yeah.
I would have been. I would have been here at the People's Temple. I could have been in any one of these. I think about all the time, like the dial of cults, and I'm glad I was raised in a destructive cult, yes, but not as destructive as this 12
Well,
tribes.
it's also too, like with organizations like that you went through, is it depends on which part that you're in and your parents too. Yeah. So as if you had a abusive father who was sexually abusing you, then he would have gotten away with it in the cult. They would have covered it up and everything else. You luckily didn't have that issue. So the issues that you had were just the indoctrination, your mom being who she is, and the teachings, at that time too. Yeah. So I think that if you had different parents, you could have had it a lot worse in that cult.
Oh yeah. And there are other people that had it way worse than I did.
Exactly. Where I think like the Yellow Deli,
they all
or the 12 tribes, they're all that way. Yeah.
So all the kids are like severely abused.
Yeah. And I think that's the big difference is, there are, these huge levels of being in these cults. And, but this one, I don't see any positive at all. Like sometimes you can look at them and go, yeah, okay, at least they're feeding people, or at least they're helping. No. This wasn't even that.
No, because the only reason why they're feeding and the only reason why they're helping is as a recruitment technique. Yeah. That's it. It's a complete 100% ulterior motive. There's no other reason why they're doing it.
So they really have weaponized control over every aspect of life.
Yep. Yeah.
And
it's almost impossible to leave. The only way you can leave is if another member who's left before you supports you, or if a family member supports you. But if you don't have that kind of support system, you're homeless.
And most of the time that when you join these kind of cults, you're getting rid of that support structure, and you're alienating that support structure.
Right. You have to,
as well.
And you have to take on a new name too.
Of course.
So they take on new names. They
give all the money away.
Give all their material assets to the cult, and get rid of their family, disconnect from their families. So it's a really hard cult to leave. Really hard.
Yeah.
Almost impossible. But the most depressing thing about this whole situation is the San Diego Police Department, like how awful they are. But I am happy to say that I still have my prejudices, but I can't just let go of my dislike my apprehension.
But it's like saying that you have this apprehensive of Black Widow spiders too, right? There's a reason.
Young teenage boys.
There's a chance that they, are going to do something.
I don't know. And what would they do? I don't know. I don't even know.
They could. You never know. Look at them. Scheming.
Look at them scheming. One of those beady little eyes.
Not quite adults, but adults at the same time. So weird and not natural.
But I have to say, these two young men, Danny Burke and Reckless Ben,
those are two kids you'd want to meet.
I would.
Two men that you would want to meet.
Yeah.
They're not kids.
They're not kids. And I think this process opened their eyes. Now they are still who they are. And I think they're beautiful young men. Yeah. They really are.
And they definitely get the end. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. We know we have a lot more to talk about, but you're going to have to catch us next time. They're definitely doing the feeding
really
the YouTube
good.
algorithm.
But you can watch all their whole series is all completed, so you can watch it because it's about 2 years old. A link down below. I would suggest watching it. It's a really good series, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed to see the growth of these two young men.
What I liked about it was the fact that, because every generation, we always talk about the next generation as idiots and slackers, and they don't understand the struggles of our generation, which we have never agreed with. No. But it's good that you see this, like they're young guys that are like taking on, these are serious matters, and they could have easily just went, oh, LOL, you guys are a cult, okay, bye. Yeah. And then that was it, and made fun of it and gone on to, how many cue balls can we stuff in our mouth kind of thing, for the next video that we're going to do.
This cult is funny if you ignore the abuse and the racism and stuff. Yeah. They do some funny stuff. Yeah. So it's easy to make fun of them. Yeah. And it would have been easy for them to come in and make fun of them, but I think I think that might
have been their intent at the beginning.
Probably, yeah.
And then they went, oh crap. Wow. What did we just walk into?
Yeah.
And especially when they started asking that one guy in the field. So because this whole idea of the racism came up, and he was asking questions about him, and this guy was defending the use of the N-word, and had this rational explanation in his head of why you'd use it, but not good and cool and dude and like all these words that have like this positive meaning. They've actually turned into a negative word where if you're saying this, you're actually meaning really bad things. Like dude means like some shriveled testes or something like that.
I think it was a pimple on your butt.
A pimple on your butt. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is so funny.
Yeah. So then I'm like, and then I see stuff like this, and I just want to go like, well, I want to know what this really means. And it's actually not any better what it really means, but it's not bad. It's from like Yankee Doodle Dandy. It's a doodle dandy, which is a
effeminate man.
a flamboyant, not always effeminate. That was kind of the transition where the dandy came from.
Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah.
They see him here.
Yeah,
they seek him there.
He seeks the lupins everywhere.
Is he in heaven? Is he in hell?
Yeah. But it's this idea of, the doodle short dude. Mm-hmm. So that, and again, that's a theory. I'm sure there's another 1,000 theories about where the term came from.
I like it. Dude is a pimple on your butt.
Yeah.
How often does that even happen? But I don't know.
Well, for teenagers, probably quite a bit.
Yeah. For those 104,000
so
virgins.
They are dudes. Yeah. The dude has a dude.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that kind of wraps up this cult. The 12 tribes, the Yellow Deli. And I am in 100% agreement with these two men, Danny Burke and Reckless Ben. Do not patron these organizations.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are on the Appalachian Trail, just be careful in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot that stuff goes on there, even outside of this. This is just another example. But
you may hike the Appalachian Trail and end up in a cult. Yeah, I would suggest not doing that. But
there's a lot of stories from the AT, so it's very, very interesting too.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well, thank you.
Yep, and also let us know what you think. We hit 1,000 subscribers, so I appreciate that. And tell us in the comments below what you think. What did we get wrong about this story? Because there's a lot of information here that we probably didn't cover. And if you know anybody, let us know.
Yep.
So,
thank you.